Queen Elena Valdris knelt on the cold marble floor of the throne room, her royal crown discarded 3 feet away where Governor Malik had thrown it. The assembled alien dignitaries watched in silence as the human ruler of the Terran coalition remained motionless, her hands bound behind her back with energy restraints that glowed a harsh blue against her torn ceremonial robes. Captain Ryan Cole stood at attention behind the ceremonial guard line, his jaw clenched as he watched the proceedings. 27 years of military service had prepared him for many things, but watching his queen endure this calculated humiliation tested every fiber of his training. The Zephyrian delegates had arrived that morning under the pretense of peace negotiations, only to reveal their true purpose once inside the palace walls. "The human expansion ends today," Governor Malik declared, his reptilian features displaying what passed for satisfaction among his species. "Your queen has agreed to sign the territorial concession in exchange for her people's continued existence." Elena's voice carried across the vast chamber despite her position. "I have agreed to nothing!" The governor's tail swept across the marble with a sharp crack. "Perhaps you require additional motivation to consider our generous offer." 3 more Zephyrian soldiers entered the throne room, their plasma weapons trained on a group of human civilians Cole recognized as palace staff members. Among them stood Maria Santos, the head chef who had served the royal family for 15 years, and her 8-year-old daughter, Lucy. Cole's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm before discipline reasserted itself. Direct action would result in civilian casualties. The protocols were clear. Protect the queen. Minimize collateral damage. Wait for the optimal moment. Release the civilians, Elena commanded, her voice never wavering despite her compromised position. Your quarrel is with me. Governor Malik approached the kneeling queen, his massive frame casting a shadow across her. Your species lacks understanding of proper hierarchy. Today you learned the natural order. The assembled alien delegates murmured their approval. Cole recognized several species among them, all former human allies who had apparently chosen a different side when the political winds shifted. The Terran coalition's rapid expansion had created enemies as quickly as it had gained territory. Lucy Santos broke free from her mother's grasp and ran toward the throne. "Leave our queen alone," the child's voice echoed through the chamber as she picked up Elena's fallen crown, her small hand struggling with its weight. The energy restraints prevented Elena from accepting it, but Lucy stood beside her anyway, holding the symbol of human sovereignty with determined defiance. "Touching," Governor Malik hissed. The young learn loyalty from their elders' mistakes. Cole stepped forward slightly, his movement barely perceptible but enough to position himself for potential action. The other guards remained statue still, their training overriding their emotional responses. Lena looked up at Lucy, her expression soft despite the circumstances. "Thank you, brave one, but you should return to your mother now." "I won't let them hurt you," Lucy whispered, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent throne room. The governor raised his clawed hand toward the child. Perhaps a demonstration of consequences would prove instructive. That single gesture shattered Cole's restraint. Protocol demanded he wait, but something deeper than training demanded he act. The distance between his position and the governor was 12 feet. The alien's attention was focused on Lucy. The plasma weapons were aimed at the adult civilians, not the child. Cole moved. His first step was silent. His second launched him into a controlled sprint. The governor turned at the third step, surprise registering across his reptilian features. By the fourth step, Cole's shoulder connected with Malik's midsection, sending the massive alien stumbling backward. "Code 7! Protect the crown!" Cole's voice boomed across the throne room as he rolled to his feet between the governor and Lucy. The command activated every guard in the chamber. Years of coordinated training exploded into motion as the Royal Protection Detail engaged the Zephyrian forces. Energy weapons discharged in controlled bursts while guards provided cover for the civilian evacuation. Elena remained kneeling, unable to move, but her eyes tracking every development with tactical precision. "Ryan, the treaty documents are in the governor's possession. Priority Alpha." Cole understood immediately. While his team handled the immediate threat, his objective was clear. The forced treaty that would have dissolved human territorial rights was the real weapon in this chamber. Captain Hayes's voice crackled through the communication system as backup units stormed the throne room. But the initial advantage belonged to Cole's team, who had turned diplomatic humiliation into a tactical engagement in seconds. Lucy still clutched the crown, her young face set with determination as chaos erupted around her. She had unknowingly provided the catalyst that transformed surrender into resistance. The governor struggled to his feet, his earlier confidence replaced by fury as he realized his carefully orchestrated ceremony had collapsed into armed conflict. The alien delegates scrambled for cover while Zephyrian soldiers found themselves outmaneuvered by guards who knew every corner of the palace. Elena's restraints sparked as emergency protocols activated throughout the building. The battle for human sovereignty had begun with a child's courage and a guard's choice to act when duty demanded more than discipline allowed. Governor Malik's backup forces flooded through the eastern corridors as Cole's team established defensive positions around the throne. The initial surprise had given them crucial seconds, but the Zephyrians possessed superior numbers and firepower. Cole needed to reach the treaty documents before reinforcements could tip the battle decisively against them. "Santos, get your daughter to the safe room," Cole commanded while suppressing enemy fire with controlled bursts from his rifle. The marble pillars provided excellent cover, but their defensive position would become untenable once the aliens coordinated their assault. Maria grabbed Lucy's hand, but the girl resisted. "I won't leave the Queen!" Elena's voice cut through the weapon fire. "Lucy, I need you to carry my crown to safety. Can you do that for me?" The child nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of responsibility in the Queen's request. She clutched the ceremonial headpiece and allowed her mother to guide her toward the emergency exit. Cole watched them disappear through the concealed doorway before turning his attention to Governor Malik, who had taken cover behind an overturned ceremonial table. The treaty documents remained in a sealed case attached to the alien's arm, protected by personal energy shielding. "Lieutenant Morrison, provide covering fire on my mark," Cole directed through his communication device. "I'm moving to secure the primary objective." The throne room had transformed into a tactical battleground, with both sides utilizing the chamber's architectural features for strategic advantage. The Zephyrians held the main entrance but found themselves exposed when crossing the open marble floor. Cole's guards controlled the elevated positions around the throne area, giving them superior firing angles. Elena remained in her compromised position, the energy restraints preventing movement but her strategic mind continuing to function. "Ryan, the governor's personal shield has a thermal reset cycle every 47 seconds. Pattern suggests Zephyrian standard equipment." Cole processed this intelligence while monitoring his chronometer. Elena's observation skills remained sharp despite her physical constraints. The thermal reset would provide a narrow window for action. "All units, synchronize suppression fire in 15 seconds, Cole transmitted. "Duration 20 seconds, then shift to defensive positions." The coordinated barrage erupted exactly on schedule, forcing every Zephyrian soldier to seek immediate cover. Cole sprinted across the exposed floor space, his movements calculated to intersect with the governor's position during the shield's reset phase. Malik spotted Cole's approach and raised his sidearm, but the timing proved perfect. The personal energy shield flickered offline for its thermal cycle just as Cole reached striking distance. A precisely delivered blow to the governor's wrist sent the weapon skittering across the marble floor. The sealed case containing the treaty documents was secured by biometric locks that only responded to Malik's touch. Cole wrapped his arm around the governor's throat, applying pressure that would render the alien unconscious without causing permanent harm. "Release the Queen's restraints or I ensure you never wake up," Cole whispered into Malik's ear, his voice carrying absolute conviction. The governor struggled briefly before recognizing his position was hopeless. His clawed finger activated a control device, causing Elena's energy restraints to dissolve into sparks. Elena rose to her feet with fluid grace, her royal bearing restored even with her ceremonial robes torn and dirt on her knees. She approached Cole and the subdued governor with measured steps, her expression revealing nothing of the humiliation she had endured. "The treaty documents," Elena said simply. Malik's hand remained on the biometric scanner, his choices reduced to cooperation or unconsciousness. Whoosh! The sealed case opened with a soft hiss, revealing the fabricated agreements that would have stripped humanity of half its territorial holdings. Elena took the documents and walked to the ceremonial brazier that burned beside the throne. The flames consumed the papers in seconds, reducing months of Zephyrian legal manipulation to ash. "Tell your superiors the Terran Coalition does not negotiate under coercion," Elena announced to the chamber. "Any future diplomatic contact will observe proper protocols." Cole maintained his hold on Governor Malik while scanning the room for remaining threats. The alien forces had ceased firing once their leader was captured, creating a tense standoff that could shift either direction. Captain Hayes' voice echoed from the main entrance. "Palace secured. All civilians evacuated successfully, awaiting orders." Elena retrieved her crown from where Lucy had carefully placed it on the throne's base. She positioned it on her head with deliberate ceremony, each movement reinforcing her authority and the failure of the Zephyrian intimidation attempt. "Governor Malik and his delegation will be escorted to their ships immediately," Elena declared. "Any delay will be considered an act of aggression." The alien delegates emerged from their hiding places with obvious relief, eager to distance themselves from a plan that had catastrophically backfired. Their quick retreat suggested many had participated reluctantly, pressured by Zephyrian influence rather than genuine opposition to human expansion. Cole released the governor but remained within striking distance as Zephyrian soldiers lowered their weapons. The tactical situation had reversed completely from the humiliating ceremony that began the encounter. As the alien forces filed toward the exit under heavy guard escort, Governor Malik paused beside Elena. "This changes nothing. Human expansion will be stopped." "Today it was," Elena replied calmly. "Tomorrow depends on choices you have yet to make." The throne room gradually emptied until only Cole and Elena remained beside the ceremonial brazier. The Queen stood silently for several moments, processing the events that had transformed a diplomatic disaster into unexpected victory. Cole maintained his respectful distance, understanding that his actions had dramatically exceeded normal protocol boundaries. The decision to act had felt necessary in the moment, but the consequences for his career remained unclear. "Ryan," Elena said without turning around. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Thank you." The simple words carried weight that formal recognition could never match. Cole had chosen courage over convention, when duty demanded more than discipline, and both of them understood the significance of that moment. Elena turned toward the main entrance where her staff waited to begin damage assessments and diplomatic repairs. The real work of leadership was just beginning, but the foundation of human sovereignty remained intact thanks to a guard's split-second decision and a child's incorruptible courage. The throne room fell silent except for the crackling of ceremonial flames consuming the last remnants of forced surrender. Lucy Santos sat in the palace gardens with Elena's crown carefully positioned on the stone bench between them. The 8-year-old had insisted on personally returning the ceremonial headpiece once the all-clear signal was given, and Elena had agreed to meet her in the peaceful courtyard away from the chaos of post-incident procedures. "Were you scared when they made you kneel down?" Lucy asked with the direct honesty that only children possessed. Elena considered her answer carefully. "Yes, I was scared. But being scared doesn't mean we stop doing what's right." The Queen had changed from her torn ceremonial robes into a simple blue dress that made her appear more like Lucy's older sister than the ruler of the Terran Coalition. The formal distance required in the throne room had no place in this quiet conversation. Lucy traced the crown's jeweled surface with her finger. "My mom says Captain Cole might get in trouble for helping you." "Captain Cole followed his conscience when duty demanded it," Elena explained. "Sometimes the most important rules aren't written in books." The garden provided a sanctuary from the diplomatic storm that was already brewing beyond the palace walls. News of the failed Zephyrian intimidation attempt had spread through the communication networks, generating reactions across human and alien territories alike. Some would view the incident as justification for increased aggression, while others would see it as proof that negotiation remained possible. Elena's personal aide approached with measured steps, clearly reluctant to interrupt the informal meeting. "Your Majesty, the emergency council session is prepared to begin." 5 more minutes, Elena requested, her attention remaining focused on Lucy. The aide withdrew respectfully, leaving them alone beside the fountain, where purple flowers bloomed despite the approaching winter season. Elena had always found clarity in this garden, away from the constant pressure of decisions that affected millions of lives. "Will the bad aliens come back?" Lucy asked, her young voice betraying worry despite her earlier bravery. "Possibly," Elena answered honestly. "But now they understand something important about humanity that they didn't know before." "What's that?" "That we protect each other even when it's dangerous." Lucy nodded solemnly, as if filing away this lesson for future reference. Her mother had raised her well, instilling values that had shone through in the throne room when adults faltered under pressure. Captain Cole appeared at the garden entrance, still in his tactical gear, but with weapons secured. He approached with careful steps, uncertain about protocol for this unusual situation. "Captain," Elena acknowledged his presence while remaining seated beside Lucy. "Your Majesty, I wanted to apologize for exceeding operational parameters during the incident." Elena stood and faced Cole directly. "You acted to protect an innocent child and preserve human sovereignty. Your judgment proved correct. The review board may not see it that way," Cole replied, his professional demeanor unable to completely mask his concern about career implications. Lucy hopped down from the bench and picked up the crown with both hands. "He saved you because it was the right thing to do. That's what heroes do." She walked to Elena and held up the ceremonial headpiece. "I think this belongs to you now." Elena accepted her crown and placed it gently on her head, the formal gesture marking her return to full authority. But the simple ceremony in the garden felt more meaningful than any elaborate coronation could have provided. "Captain Cole," Elena announced formally. "The Terran Coalition requires leaders who understand that true duty sometimes transcends written orders. I'm promoting you to Major and assigning you as head of palace security." Cole's expression shifted from concern to surprise to gratitude in rapid succession. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't disappoint you." "You already haven't," Elena replied with a slight smile. Lucy clapped her hands excitedly. "Now you get to protect the Queen all the time." The promotion solved multiple problems simultaneously. Cole's actions during the incident had demonstrated exceptional judgment under pressure, making him ideal for the crucial security position. Additionally, the advancement would send a clear message to other guard personnel that initiative and moral courage were valued qualities. Elena's aide reappeared, this time with visible urgency. "Your Majesty, Ambassador Chen from the Centauri Alliance is requesting immediate communication." The Zephyrian incident has created diplomatic complications across 3 sectors. The real world was demanding Elena's attention, pulling her away from the peaceful garden where simple truths existed without political complexity. The failed intimidation attempt would have consequences that stretched far beyond the throne room confrontation. "Lucy, would you like to visit the palace again sometime?" Elena asked as she prepared to leave. "Can I bring my mom?" "Of course. Perhaps next time we can have tea without any governors trying to cause trouble." Lucy giggled at the idea, her childhood resilience already moving past the morning's frightening events. Elena envied that ability to process trauma and move forward without carrying permanent scars. As they walked toward the palace entrance, Elena reflected on the lessons of the day. A child's courage had provided the catalyst for resistance. A guard's moral conviction had transformed defeat into victory, and humanity's determination to protect its own had been demonstrated to potential enemies throughout the galaxy. The Emergency Council session would address immediate diplomatic concerns, but the deeper message had already been sent. Human expansion might face opposition, but human values would not be compromised through intimidation or force. Major Cole fell into step beside Elena as they approached the palace doors, his new role as head of security beginning immediately. The crown on Elena's head caught afternoon sunlight, sending sparkles across the garden path behind them. The Terran Coalition had survived its first major test of resolve, emerging stronger than before through the combined actions of ordinary people who chose extraordinary courage when circumstances demanded it. The Emergency Council chamber buzzed with controlled tension as Elena took her position at the head of the vast table. Representatives from every human colony participated through holographic projection, their faces displaying varying degrees of concern about the Zephyrian incident's implications. The failed intimidation attempt had created ripple effects across diplomatic networks that extended far beyond the original confrontation. Ambassador Patricia Vaughn from the Centauri Alliance spoke first, her transmission crackling slightly due to the distance. Your Majesty, 3 allied species have expressed concern about human aggressive tendencies following reports of the throne room engagement. They're questioning our commitment to peaceful coexistence. Elena maintained her calm demeanor despite the frustrating irony of being labeled aggressive after defending against an unprovoked attack. Ambassador Vaughn, please provide those allies with complete recordings of today's events. Context will clarify which party initiated hostilities. Defense Minister Charles Grant leaned forward from his position across the table. The Zephyrian strike force that remained in orbit has departed the system, but their trajectory suggests they're heading toward Rigel Station. Intelligence indicates they may be coordinating with mercenary groups. Major Cole stood at his new position behind Elena's chair, his enhanced security protocols already in effect. The promotion had been announced throughout the palace staff, generating positive responses from personnel who had witnessed his courage during the incident. What's our current defensive status across the outer colonies? Elena asked, knowing that the Zephyrian action might be part of a larger coordinated assault. Admiral Lisa Thornton answered from her command ship, her holographic image showing the bridge activity continuing around her. All military installations are at elevated readiness. However, our rapid expansion has stretched defensive resources across multiple sectors. If coordinated attacks occur simultaneously, we'll face significant challenges. Elena absorbed this information while considering broader strategic implications. The Terran Coalition's growth had indeed created vulnerabilities that hostile forces could exploit. The question was whether today's incident represented an isolated intimidation attempt or the beginning of systematic opposition. Colonial Governor Marcus Webb from the Vega system contributed additional concerns. Your Majesty, civilian populations in the newer territories are requesting increased military presence. News of the throne room incident has spread rapidly, creating anxiety about personal safety. The irony continued to compound. Elena's resistance to Zephyrian intimidation had inspired confidence in human resolve while simultaneously generating fear about potential retaliation. Leadership required balancing these contradictory public reactions. Dr. Helen Foster from the Xenobiology Department has additional intelligence, announced Minister Grant, gesturing toward the chamber entrance. Dr. Foster entered with tablet devices displaying complex biological data. Her research division had provided crucial intelligence about alien physiology during previous conflicts, making her insights particularly valuable. The Zephyrian governor's behavior patterns suggest this was not improvised intimidation, Dr. Foster explained while activating her presentation displays. Their species requires extensive cultural preparation for actions that involve loss of face. Today's attempt was planned weeks or months in advance. Elena leaned back in her chair, processing the implications of premeditated rather than reactive aggression. Then they expected human surrender to be inevitable. Correct. Zephyrian psychology views negotiation under physical restraint as natural hierarchy assertion. They genuinely believed you would sign the territorial concessions to avoid personal humiliation. Major Cole shifted slightly behind Elena's chair, his body language indicating continued alertness despite the academic discussion. His military experience provided context for understanding how enemies could misread human cultural responses. Ambassador Vaughn contributed additional perspective from her diplomatic posting. Several neutral species have mentioned increased Zephyrian recruitment efforts over the past 6 months. They're building some kind of coalition, but the specific objectives remain unclear. Elena stood and walked to the chamber's main viewing screen, which displayed current territorial boundaries and known alien territories. The human expansion had indeed created a complex web of borders that intersected with dozens of different species' claims. They're testing our resolve, Elena concluded after studying the territorial map. Today was meant to establish a pattern of human submission that could be repeated throughout our colonies. Minister Grant nodded agreement. If they had succeeded in forcing territorial concessions through intimidation, every border dispute would have included similar pressure tactics. The strategic picture became clearer as Elena examined the broader context. Human expansion had been rapid but largely peaceful, with territorial agreements negotiated rather than conquered. Hostile forces viewed this diplomatic approach as weakness rather than strength. Admiral Thornton, I want defensive preparations at every colony, but maintain peaceful postures, Elena commanded. We will not initiate conflicts, but we will be prepared to respond decisively to any aggression. Understood, Your Majesty. How should we handle requests for additional military presence in civilian areas? Elena considered the delicate balance between security and maintaining the open societies that defined human colonies. Heavy military presence could provide safety while undermining the freedoms that made human territories attractive to allied species. Increase security protocols, but keep military personnel in support roles rather than obvious patrol duties. I want our people to feel safe without feeling occupied. Dr. Foster raised her tablet with additional data. Your Majesty, biological analysis of the Zephyrian delegation indicates they were using chemical enhancement compounds that increase aggression and reduce empathy. This wasn't normal diplomatic behavior even by their standards. The revelation added another layer of complexity to the day's events. Chemical enhancement suggested the Zephyrians had prepared for potential violence rather than expecting peaceful surrender. Major Cole spoke for the first time during the meeting. The combat drugs explained their surprise when we responded with force. They expected either submission or chaotic panic, not coordinated tactical response. Elena returned to her seat as the implications of enhanced enemies became clear. The throne room confrontation could have resulted in significant casualties if the Royal Guard hadn't maintained professional discipline throughout the engagement. Dr. Foster, I want detailed analysis of any chemical compounds we can identify. If they're using enhancement drugs, we need to understand their effects and duration. Already in progress, Your Majesty. Preliminary results should be available within 6 hours. The meeting continued for another hour as various department heads provided status updates and resource assessments, but the fundamental strategic situation had become clear through the discussion. Human expansion would face increased opposition from coalitions of species who viewed diplomatic success as weakness to be exploited. Elena adjourned the emergency session with specific tasking for each department and a timeline for regular status updates. The Zephyrian incident had ended successfully, but the broader conflict was just beginning. As the council members disconnected their communications links, Elena remained in the chamber with Major Cole and Minister Grant to discuss more sensitive operational details that required restricted access. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the chamber windows reminded Elena of Lucy Santos holding her crown with determined courage. Sometimes the most important lessons came from unexpected sources during moments of crisis. 6 weeks after the throne room incident, Elena stood on the observation deck of the flagship Terran Resolve as Admiral Thornton's fleet approached the disputed Kepler 442 system. Intelligence reports had confirmed Zephyrian forces were establishing illegal mining operations on planets with existing human territorial claims, forcing a direct confrontation that diplomacy alone couldn't resolve. Major Cole maintained his position beside Elena, his security protocols adapted for shipboard operations while retaining his protective focus. The promotion to head of palace security had evolved into fleet security coordinator, as events demanded Elena's personal presence during critical negotiations. Sensor readings confirmed 12 Zephyrian vessels in the system, including 3 heavy cruisers, Admiral Thornton reported from her command station. They've ignored all communication attempts demanding withdrawal from human territory. Elena studied the tactical displays showing enemy positions around the gas giant's mineral-rich moons. The illegal mining operations represented exactly the kind of territorial aggression she had predicted following the failed intimidation attempt at the palace. Admiral, what's our current diplomatic status with nearby neutral systems? The Arcturus Republic has offered to mediate if both sides agree to arbitration. However, the Zephyrians have rejected all arbitration proposals from species they consider human sympathizers. Elena nodded while considering available options. Military action would establish that human territorial claims would be defended, but it could also escalate into broader conflict with unknown consequences. However, allowing illegal occupation would invite similar aggression throughout human colonies. Communications. Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet commander, Elena directed. The main screen activated to reveal Commander Vask, a Zephyrian military officer whose scales showed the deep scarring that indicated extensive combat experience. His expression conveyed absolute contempt for human authority. "You will withdraw from this system immediately," Elena stated without preamble. "Your presence violates established territorial agreements." Commander Vask's tail lashed behind him in what Elena recognized as Zephyrian amusement. Human expansion ends today. These resources belong to species strong enough to claim them. This system was legally claimed and registered through proper interstellar protocols 18 months ago. Your mining operation is theft. Protocols created by weak species to protect weakness. We recognize strength alone. Elena maintained her composed expression despite recognizing the fundamental cultural divide that made peaceful resolution impossible. Zephyrian society viewed military might as the only legitimate source of authority, making their respect for human territorial rights dependent on demonstrated power. Admiral Thornton, tactical options, Elena requested, while keeping the communication channel open. We can disable their mining equipment with minimal casualties, forcing them to withdraw without destroying their ships. However, their heavy cruisers outgun our escort vessels if they choose direct engagement. Elena weighed the tactical assessment against broader strategic implications. Success here would discourage similar territorial violations elsewhere, while failure would invite aggression across multiple systems. Commander Vask's voice interrupted her consideration. You have 1 hour to withdraw from this system before we consider your presence an act of aggression. The communication link terminated, leaving Elena with a clear ultimatum that demanded immediate decision-making. Major Cole stepped closer to provide additional security assessment. Your Majesty, the Zephyrian combat enhancement levels appear elevated again. They're preparing for violence regardless of our response. Elena turned to face Admiral Thornton at her command station. Admiral, implement Tactical Option 3. Disable their mining operations and provide safe passage for withdrawal, but prepare for full defensive engagement if they choose to escalate. Understood. All ships, battle stations, this is not a drill. Warning klaxons activated throughout the fleet as Elena's decision triggered coordinated military action. The observation deck's reinforced viewing ports dimmed automatically as defensive systems powered up for potential combat. Elena remained standing despite the tactical situation, her presence providing visible leadership during the critical engagement. Major Cole activated additional security protocols while maintaining his protective position. First wave launching now, Admiral Thornton announced as fighter squadrons streaked away from the carrier vessels. Target, mining platforms only. Repeat, mining platforms only. The tactical display showed human fighters approaching Zephyrian positions with surgical precision. Elena watched the electronic representations of real people executing her orders, while knowing their lives depended on decisions made from the safety of the flagship's command center. Zephyrian fighters launching in response, reported the sensor officer. 8 squadrons moving to intercept. The first engagement erupted in brilliant flashes visible through the observation deck's protective filters. Human and Zephyrian fighters clashed around the disputed mining platforms while larger ships maintained defensive positions. Mining platform Alpha disabled, Admiral Thornton reported. Platform Beta under attack. Zephyrian casualties minimal. Elena nodded approval of the tactical execution. Human forces were achieving their objectives while minimizing unnecessary violence, demonstrating that territorial defense didn't require genocidal aggression. Commander Vask's face reappeared on the communication screen, his features displaying rage at the successful human assault. You will pay for this aggression. All human colonies will burn for today's insult. Your illegal occupation has ended, Elena replied calmly. Withdrawal from this system will prevent further hostilities. We do not withdraw. Prepare for total war. 3 Zephyrian heavy cruisers accelerated toward the human fleet, their weapons charging for maximum destructive effect. Admiral Thornton's defensive formations adjusted to meet the incoming threat while maintaining protective barriers around the flagship. All platforms disabled, reported the tactical officer. Mission objective achieved. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Elena faced the critical decision point where successful tactical action could escalate into devastating strategic conflict. Withdrawal would preserve human lives while allowing Zephyrian forces to claim victory through aggression. Continued engagement would defend human sovereignty while risking significant casualties. Admiral, maintain defensive positions. We will not retreat from human territory under threat of violence. The command sealed their commitment to stand and fight if necessary. Elena's choice echoed the throne room decision that had transformed humiliation into resistance through moral courage. The approaching Zephyrian cruisers represented a test of human resolve that would determine the future of territorial expansion throughout the galaxy. Elena had chosen defiance over survival once again, trusting that democracy and justice provided stronger foundations than fear and intimidation. The battle for human sovereignty would be decided in the next few minutes above the gas giants' contested moons. The engagement erupted across space in coordinated volleys that turned tactical displays into cascading light shows of destruction and defense. Admiral Thornton's fleet responded to the Zephyrian assault with precision, targeting that avoided escalation while maintaining protective formations around the flagship where Elena observed the unfolding battle. "Direct hit on Cruiser Venom's edge," reported the sensor officer as explosions bloomed across the main screen. "Their forward weapons array is disabled." Elena watched the engagement with tactical appreciation for Admiral Thornton's strategic expertise. The human fleet was outgunned but not outmaneuvered, using superior coordination to compensate for individual vessel limitations. Commander Vask's heavy cruiser led the assault, its massive frame absorbing defensive fire while returning devastating volleys that tested human shielding systems to their limits. The Zephyrian commander had chosen personal combat over strategic withdrawal, transforming the territorial dispute into a direct test of military capabilities. "Flagship Terran Resolve, this is Fighter Squadron Leader Captain Martinez," came the transmission from the ongoing fighter combat around the disabled mining platforms. "Enemy squadrons are regrouping for assault on the fleet. Recommend immediate defensive screen deployment." Admiral Thornton acknowledged the tactical update while adjusting fleet positioning to meet the evolving threat. "Deploy defensive screens. All ships maintain protective formation around the flagship." Elena appreciated the protective focus but understood the broader implications of requiring special defensive measures. Her presence on the flagship created tactical constraints that Admiral Thornton was managing with professional skill. "Admiral, I want to address the fleet," Elena announced, moving toward the ship-wide communication station. "Your Majesty, communication during active combat could compromise operational security," Major Cole cautioned, his protective instincts conflicting with Elena's leadership requirements. "Our people need to understand what they're fighting for," Elena replied, activating the fleet communication system with calm determination. Her voice carried across all ships simultaneously, reaching every crew member through their individual communication devices. "This is Queen Elena. Today we defend more than territory. We defend the principle that expansion through diplomacy and legal process deserves protection against aggression and intimidation." The tactical displays continued showing the ongoing engagement while Elena's words provided context for the dangerous mission. Human expansion had occurred through negotiation and peaceful settlement rather than conquest, creating moral authority that justified defensive action. "The Zephyrian forces chose violence over diplomacy. They chose aggression over legal resolution. We respond not with hate, but with justice. We fight not for conquest, but for sovereignty." Commander Vask's cruiser launched a massive barrage directly at the flagship, forcing defensive systems to maximum power while Elena continued her address. The timing created a dramatic backdrop that emphasized the stakes of the current engagement. Every shot you fire defends human families throughout the colonies. Every tactical decision you make protects children who will grow up free because you chose courage over surrender. The communication ended as Admiral Thornton required full attention for the intensifying battle. Zephyrian reinforcements had arrived at the system's edge, doubling their effective numbers, while human forces remained limited to the original fleet strength. "Sensor contact," announced the tactical officer. 12 additional ships dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration suggests Zephyrian heavy assault vessels. Elena absorbed this development with outward calm while recognizing the deteriorating tactical situation. Human forces were now significantly outnumbered by enemies equipped with superior firepower and tactical positioning advantages. "Admiral, what are our withdrawal options? Hyperspace jump is available, but we'll need to maintain defensive fire for approximately 8 minutes during drive charging sequence. The enemy will have multiple opportunities for decisive strikes during that window." Elena considered the tactical mathematics while explosions continued illuminating the observation deck through defensive filters. Withdrawal would preserve human lives while ceding territorial claims to aggressive intimidation. Continued engagement guaranteed casualties while defending sovereignty principles. Dr. Foster's chemical analysis from 6 weeks ago indicated Zephyrian enhancement compounds have limited duration, Major Cole reminded Elena quietly. Extended combat might reduce their effectiveness. The biological intelligence provided potential tactical advantage if human forces could survive long enough for chemical enhancement to degrade. Elena looked at Admiral Thornton for professional assessment of their endurance capabilities. Admiral, can we maintain defensive positions for 30 minutes? Affirmative, assuming current casualty rates. However, the reinforcements will affect those calculations significantly. Elena made her decision with the same moral clarity that had guided her during the throne room incident. Surrender would protect immediate lives while sacrificing long-term security for millions of human colonists. Continue engagement. All ships maintain current defensive posture. The flagship shuddered as Zephyrian fire penetrated outer defensive screens, causing damage alerts throughout the ship. Elena remained standing at the observation deck despite the increasing danger, her visible presence providing leadership during the critical battle. Emergency communication from the Arcturus Republic, reported the communication officer. They're offering immediate arbitration services with enforcement guarantees. The neutral species had apparently decided that escalating conflict threatened regional stability enough to justify intervention. Elena recognized the diplomatic opportunity while understanding that accepting arbitration under fire might appear as retreat under pressure. Commander Vask's image reappeared on the communications screen, his features showing the strain of extended combat enhancement. Human Queen, withdraw now or witness the complete destruction of your pathetic fleet. Elena faced the Zephyrian commander with unwavering composure despite the tactical disadvantages her forces were enduring. Commander Vask, this system remains human territory. Your forces are trespassing and will be treated as hostile until you withdraw. The communication terminated as both sides prepared for the decisive phase of a battle that would determine whether human expansion continued through legal means or yielded to military intimidation. Elena's choice to resist had transformed a territorial dispute into a conflict that would define interspecies relationships throughout the galaxy. The afternoon's outcome would echo through diplomatic channels for decades. The tide of battle shifted dramatically when Captain Martinez's fighter squadron executed a coordinated assault on Commander Vask's flagship, exploiting a shield weakness that Admiral Thornton's tactical analysis had identified during the prolonged engagement. The Zephyrian command ship's defensive capabilities collapsed in a cascade of system failures that left it vulnerable to decisive action. Commander Vask's flagship is disabled, reported the sensor officer with barely contained excitement. Main weapons offline, propulsion compromised, life support systems minimal. Elena watched the tactical displays transform as Zephyrian forces reacted to their leader's sudden vulnerability. The chemical enhancement compounds that Dr. Foster had analyzed were clearly losing effectiveness, causing coordination problems among alien units that had operated with mechanical precision at the battle's beginning. Admiral Thornton seized the tactical opportunity with professional excellence. All ships focus fire on cruiser formations, disable propulsion and weapons systems, minimize casualties while maximizing tactical advantage. The human fleet responded with coordinated precision that demonstrated months of training and preparation. Each ship knew its role in the larger tactical picture, allowing complex maneuvers to unfold with efficiency that overwhelmed the chemically compromised Zephyrian forces. Your Majesty, Major Cole reported while monitoring security communications. The Arcturus Republic arbitration team is requesting permission to enter the system. They have enforcement vessels standing by. Elena considered the diplomatic development while watching human forces methodically disable additional Zephyrian vessels. External arbitration would provide face-saving options for both sides while establishing precedents for future territorial disputes. Admiral, what's our current tactical status? 7 enemy vessels disabled, 4 retreating toward hyperspace jump points, 3 attempting to maintain defensive positions around their command ship. We've achieved tactical superiority. The battle's outcome had been decided through tactical excellence and moral determination rather than superior firepower. Elena's decision to resist intimidation had proved correct despite the numerical disadvantages her forces had faced. "Communications! Open a channel to Commander Vask's ship," Elena directed. The command facility's main screen activated to reveal the Zephyrian bridge in chaos, with damaged systems sparking and crew members struggling to maintain basic operations. Commander Vask remained at his command position despite obvious injuries, his pride preventing surrender even with his ship crippled. "Commander, I'm offering you safe passage to withdraw from this system," Elena announced with diplomatic courtesy that contrasted sharply with the ongoing tactical situation. Vask's voice carried exhaustion and pain as he responded. "Humans seek to humiliate us further with false mercy? I seek to end unnecessary violence while maintaining territorial sovereignty. Your forces fought courageously, but this system remains under human authority." The Zephyrian commander studied Elena's image through his damaged communications system, clearly struggling to understand human motivations that prioritize minimal casualties over total victory. "The Arcturus Republic has offered arbitration with enforcement guarantees," Elena continued. "Your government can pursue territorial claims through legal processes rather than military action." Admiral Thornton provided additional tactical pressure through fleet positioning that demonstrated human capability to destroy the disabled vessels while choosing restraint instead. The strategic message was clear without requiring explicit threats. Commander Vask's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on grudging respect. "You fight well for a species we considered weak. Perhaps arbitration deserves consideration. Admiral Thornton will escort your remaining vessels to the system's edge," Elena offered. "Arbitration representatives from Arcturus can meet both delegations at neutral coordinates." The Zephyrian commander activated internal communications to coordinate with his surviving ships. Elena watched the tactical displays as alien vessels began withdrawal maneuvers under human escort, transforming the battlefield into an organized diplomatic transition. "Your Majesty," Admiral Thornton reported privately, "this outcome exceeds our most optimistic projections. We've demonstrated defensive capabilities while providing diplomatic alternatives to continued aggression." Elena nodded appreciatively while recognizing that today's success would generate new challenges throughout human territories. Other hostile species would analyze the engagement to develop countermeasures, while allied species would reassess human military capabilities with greater respect. Dr. Foster's chemical compound analysis proved critical to our tactical success, Elena noted. "I want her research division expanded to support future xenobiology intelligence requirements." The flagship's damage control teams completed their repair assessments as Elena prepared to address the fleet once again. The successful defensive action deserved recognition while maintaining focus on broader strategic objectives. "Attention all ships, this is Queen Elena. Today you defended human sovereignty through courage, skill, and moral conviction. Your actions prevented territorial aggression while minimizing casualties on both sides." The fleet communication system carried her words to every crew member who had participated in the historic engagement. Elena wanted them to understand the significance of their achievement beyond the immediate tactical success. The Zephyrian forces will withdraw to neutral territories where diplomatic processes can address their territorial concerns through legal channels rather than military intimidation. Your victory today protects human families throughout the colonies while demonstrating that expansion through peaceful means deserves armed protection when threatened. Fighting had ceased throughout the system as both sides transitioned to post-engagement procedures. Elena watched through the observation deck as human fighters provided escort for departing Zephyrian vessels, transforming enemies into diplomatic participants through tactical success and strategic restraint. Major Cole approached with security updates as the immediate crisis concluded. "Your Majesty, intelligence reports suggest today's engagement will have significant impact on territorial disputes throughout multiple sectors. Other hostile species were monitoring this confrontation to assess human resolve." Elena understood that the Kepler 442 engagement would be analyzed and discussed in diplomatic circles across the galaxy. The human choice to defend territorial rights while offering diplomatic alternatives had established precedents that would influence interspecies relationships for decades. Admiral, set course for human space. I want to address the Colonial Council about expanding our defensive capabilities and diplomatic outreach programs. The flagship began its journey home as Elena reflected on the lessons of the day. A child's courage in the throne room had catalyzed resistance to intimidation. Today's military success had demonstrated that human values could be defended through strength when diplomacy alone proved insufficient. The Terran coalition had survived its second major test of resolve, establishing that human expansion would continue through legal means protected by military capability when threatened. Elena's leadership had transformed two potential defeats into victories that strengthened human sovereignty throughout the galaxy. Lucy Santos would grow up in a universe where courage and justice provided better foundations than fear and intimidation.